Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. One of the biggest benefits I get being introverted is that I don't get influenced too much by our outside social environment. And things that seem like they would be out of the box for a lot of people, they jump out at me as this is so obvious, right? So, for example, a couple months ago, I was just browsing GoFundMe, or I might not even have seen it on GoFundMe. What had transpired was this Taylor Swift fan had a guitar that was signed by Taylor Swift. And she, now years later, she's thinking about getting married. And she was going to sell the guitar to help cover wedding expenses, right? And she was talking to her family about it. And her family suggested, no, 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 don't do that. We're going to set up a GoFundMe to raise some money. And a bunch of stupid Swifties gave her $10, $20, and it added up to quite a bit, right? Probably enough to have a pretty lavish wedding, in my opinion. And the headlines, I think the story made it all the way to CNN. The headline read that Swifties were helping one another. Now, I see right through that. I'm not as influenced by a lot of people. Here's what the headline really is. You've got somebody who's fortunate enough to have gone to see Taylor Swift when she was 16 years old, maybe. And she's also fortunate enough to meet the right person to get married. That's pretty hard to come by in today's society, right? And meanwhile, most of the people who gave to her probably have never gone to see a Taylor Swift concert. Some of them are probably not married. Some of them probably are not as lucky in love in general, right? You might even have people who have been divorced, right? I don't know. Maybe you can go to GoFundMe. I don't know if you can see the backgrounds of some of the people who gave to her, right? But I guarantee a good bulk of that is going to be people who are less fortunate than this girl who is just about to embark on this next chapter in her life, right? Now imagine if the campaign had gone the other direction, right? This girl who's lucky enough to have gone to see Taylor Swift when she was 16 years old and is now getting married, and now instead of people donating to her, now everybody's trying to ask her for a donation so that they could go see Taylor Swift, or that they can go out to have a social life so they can eventually meet somebody. Imagine if it went in that direction, right? I think most people would have a problem with that. The headline might read that a Taylor Swift fan who is now getting married is now being harassed by thousands of people, right? And so it would not go well, is what I'm trying to say. Now, why? Zoom out a little bit, right? Zoom out of your little bubble of how you've been indoctrinated, and tell me why, right? Now, I tutor a lot of high school students, and one day, one of my students, I was tutoring him in physics. I really had to resist the temptation to show him how indoctrinated he was, because he had come to me, and I was just looking through his papers as usual. And during his health class, or maybe just some other uh, 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 class about public health, I saw a note on signs that you have a drug addiction. There were about 10 or 12 bullet points I wanted to say. And I was reading through that. I don't struggle with drugs. Certainly not the kind of drugs that he was learning about. I don't have I have friends and family who suffer from other kinds of drugs, not the kind of drugs he was studying. I'll get to that in a second. But I was reading the 10 or 12 bullet points, and it hit me. He's 14, 15 years old, I want to say. It hit me. A lot of 14 and 15-year-olds exhibit those very symptoms with a very different kind of drug, right? One that we normally don't say drug. Or right, I'll give you a hint. The school is an expert at serving kids this kind of drug and getting them hooked, right, in the cafeterias, right? If you look at the signs here, Google it, the signs of drug addiction, 10, 12 bullet points, right? Needing to use more and more to get the same feeling, right? Being on edge when you don't have access to the drug, right? Read it. It matches perfectly with our drug addiction, right? Our food addiction, that is, right? And it's just insane how we can't see it. Bring that list to a cafeteria, to the high school cafeteria, and tell me that we don't have a school full of drug addicts, right? I can't believe how this just flies over people's head. I really can't believe it when I read it. As I said, I'm not very easily influenced because I spend a lot of time alone, right? Now, speaking of food addiction, I don't think I need to tell you guys how these last couple of years, a lot of fast food workers are very upset about their working conditions, about their pay, and it gets me very nervous because I have food allergies, and when I go to eat fast food, there aren't that many fast food restaurants I could eat at in the first place. I got to explain these allergies, and if somebody is really upset at their work and they really want to cause trouble, it would be very easy for any of these fast food. I usually try to get to know somebody who works at. I usually go to Five Guys, right? I'll usually befriend somebody at Five Guys that I can trust, and I'll make sure to go there when they're there, right? Usually that's how I handle it. But it would be so easy for any of these fast food workers to cause a scene if they're really upset. And you guys know that I love to work with metal casting, and so I know how easy it is to go online and order really poisonous chemicals and to put in somebody's food if you're really upset at your job, right? So it really makes me nervous about it. Ever since I started working with chemistry, and I go online and see how easy it is to buy, among other things, toxic metals, cyanide, and corrosive stuff. I mean, not that I would ever do anything malicious with it, but it's just too easy to buy. It makes me very nervous how easy it is to buy that stuff. Now, another lesson that I often teach high school students, and this one gets people very upset. There's often a lesson about why it's important to start investing your money early because of exponential growth, right? If you want to retire when you're 65, your dollars that you invest at 25 are worth a lot more than the dollars you invest at 35. I think most people could appreciate, and most people who have studied this could appreciate it, right? Although the students are often surprised by how big a difference it is. They know it's better, but they don't know how big a difference it is until we sit down and do the math, right? But here's the flip side of things that really gets people upset all the time. Imagine you're already 35 and it's too late to invest when you're 25. Well, if you take good care of your body, see, a lot of people think I'm only 18 years old, right? I unfortunately, I attract a lot of girls who are way younger than me, which is pluses and minuses, right? But if my body really physically is only 18 years old and I invest money today, and when I'm 80 years old, my body's only 65 in terms of physical chemistry, then it might as well be that I invested at 18, right? And so taking good care of your body is just as important as investing early, right? But unfortunately, a lot of people get very riled up when I bring it. They don't want to wait till they're 80 or 90 to retire. But if their ID says they're 80 or 90, but they have the physical ability of a 50-year-old, that's even better. They get more time for the money to grow. And better yet, they get more time for the world to become a better place, right? I look at how gay marriage has turned out, right? I hope in the coming decades, self-marriage will also become more common, right? And we'll be a lot more accepting. Population is hopefully shrinking by the time I think about retiring, right? There'll be less competition. We'll have nuclear energy. And so I'd much rather keep my body young and wait for all those good things to come, right? Now, speaking about all this technology, this past week, gold finally broke 2,500. Peter Schitt was talking about it, and Peter Schitt was talking about China buying gold, and I think that's a mistake on China's part. And I know this because of my art projects. What does China sell to the rest of the world in order to buy gold? Well, among other things, strategic metals, right? And so here's what if you zoom out a little bit, here's what happens. China digs a bunch of solar panels, a bunch of nuclear energy, a bunch of semiconductors, a bunch of batteries out of the ground, and they trade it for this shiny rock that they then have to spend money to guard in their closet, right? That's what I see when I look at China's trade, right? But again, these are things that stick out like a sore thumb if you actually look at things, right? If you don't allow yourself to get brainwashed by the television set. These are things that really stick out like a sore thumb. I don't get why why it flies over people's heads, right? All right, so we just got finished watching the Olympics, and it dawned on me the reason we play sports is to get fit, right? The reason is not so somebody else can stick their head in front of a television set and watch, right? And so instead of watching the Olympics, I don't know why people don't actually go play sports, right? Sports should not be a spectator sport, right? It really shouldn't, right? So I talk a lot about wanting to leave the United States, and one big reason is a cultural one. Here in the United States, we have a very high divorce rate. And I think the reason we have a very high divorce rate is that we are very closed up about sharing our views, right? You can't go up to somebody on a first date and find out about their religious views, about their views of wanting to have children, about their financial background. And so instead of doing that on our first date, we do it in the courthouse on divorce day, right? And so that's really upsetting to me. It's a waste of human potential more than anything else, right? It's bad enough that people get divorced, but it's a waste of human potential that people have to find these things out in the courthouse on divorce day than on the first date, right? And so I don't think our divorce rate necessarily is high. It's just that we divorce in the courthouse. Other countries, people divorce on their first date, right? I think that's a good picture of what's going on. When we first went into quarantine 4 years ago, I was sleeping so much better. And obviously, I was stuck in front of the television like a lot of people. And I noticed there weren't as many commercials about sleeping pills, insomnia. I mean, if you turn on the TV tonight at 2 a.m., you're going to see a lot of commercials that go, if you can't sleep, call your doctor and ask him about this drug that can help you sleep. Or you're going to see a lot of commercials like that. You didn't see that many during the quarantine. And I think the reason, and it's not like people didn't sleep, they slept on their own timetables. During the quarantine, I was sleeping a little bit later and later every night. And quarantine wasn't the first time I discovered that sleep schedule, actually. I was in college. We had spring break. And I was going to sleep at 10 o'clock one night, the first night of that spring break. And I woke up, I probably slept in a little bit. And the next night I went to bed at like midnight. And three beautiful things happened when I did that. Number one, I was actually tired when my head hit the pillow. It had been 26 hours since I last slept. Number two, I actually got enough sleep every night. And number three, I actually had more time during the day because now I've stretched out all my activities to a 26-hour period. And I didn't need any drugs. I didn't need any alarm clocks. I was getting my stuff done. I didn't complain about not having enough time in the day. You know, when people say everybody has the same 24 hours, I'm like, why? Why do we have to do our activities around a 24-hour clock, right? Especially in the age of remote work, in the age of, especially if you can do a job that doesn't have to be synchronous, right? I wish it were more common to sleep on other timetables. The other way I noticed this, by the way, is when I travel. I live in Phoenix right now, or I used to live in Seattle. Every time I would fly to Taiwan, all of my friends would be complaining about jet lag or something, but I would allow myself to adjust and sleep really well for a number of days, right? The other time I would notice this is back when I used to live in Seattle. Every time we would go back from daylight time to standard time, oh my God, I would have a beautiful day that one day, right? Unfortunately, it's only one day though, right? All right, so if you don't allow yourself to get brainwashed by mainstream media, all of these should be so common sense. It really should. I hate to be the one who has to break common sense on a video. I really do. Anyway, feel free to leave a comment if you have any suggestions for how to get more people to understand this, or if you have moments where you've thought outside the box and realized how stupid everybody was, leave a comment on that as well. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.